Welcome to More Than Legal, the show where we go behind the scenes to uncover the fine print of power, purpose, and profit. I'm your host, attorney Danielle Lugo. After almost 2 decades in the trenches of courtrooms and boardrooms, I have learned that every move leaves a mark and every deal tells a story. What will we uncover today? Let's find out. Hey, real quick, before we dive into the episode, remember, nothing you hear on this podcast is intended to be legal, financial, or tax advice. I invite you to contact any of the guests you hear by looking in the show notes for their contact information, or if you'd like to reach out to me, you can find my contact information at daniellelaughlin.com. All right, now let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to More Than Legal. I'm your host, Danielle Lugo, and I've got an awesome guest for you today. His name is Alex Lugo. He is someone I met a little bit randomly. We showed up to speak to a group of filmmakers about, I was speaking about intellectual property, and Alex, you were talking about AI and filmmaking. There's now like a whole progeny of just carve out AI filmmakers in the Atlanta ecosystem, which is awesome. So shout out to Natalia and all those involved in that. But I thought it would be great to bring you on today for a couple of reasons. So first, you have an incredible background. You are coming out of the technology space, but you're also a filmmaker and an actor. And that gives you just such a unique perspective and position, I think, regarding kind of your new startup, which is FilmPro. And that is an amazing application. And I've just really enjoyed seeing the growth in a really short period of time as to what you guys have built out. And I've enjoyed seeing you around and bringing you into some of our events as well. So I'm excited to talk to you today and to introduce you to the audience and myself, learn a little more intimately kind of how you got to where you are today. And what kind of where we're going with FilmPro and what you see some of those issues and ideas to be in the marketplace. So before we jump into that, why don't you share a little bit about your story and how you and your co-founder Adolfo got started on FilmPro?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Danielle. I really appreciate it. So yeah, like you touched upon, on one side of my life, I'm an actor and a filmmaker. I grew up in a family of actors. Both my parents are actors. My father, Daniel Lugo, has been a SAG actor since 1980s, basically. And so I grew up watching him on TV and film, and I grew up on sets as a kid. So that was really my entry into that world. Ever since I was, very young, I knew I wanted to be an actor, be part of the industry, and make my own films. But on the other side of my life, I was also really curious, very into math and science as a kid. I studied math and computer science at FIU, and I started my career at Goldman Sachs as a software engineer. I was kind of like by day working on Wall Street, by night I was taking acting classes in the city, doing theater, and it was a really interesting time. But I've always kind of walked that line between those two worlds of the artistic film, acting, performance world, and the math and science, critical, analytical thinking side of things. And to me, something that was really important to me in college was in the honors college at FIU, they really emphasized the importance of interdisciplinary thinking. And to me, that's always been something that's like been core to my life. I've always found that the most interesting things happen at the intersection of disciplines. So after I left Goldman, I joined Square, a payment processing company. I was there for another 4 years, and I started transitioning from being a software engineer to being more of an AI engineer, focusing more on integrating large language models and image models. And I was getting really, really interested in what was going on in that space. And at the same time, I was making my own films, and I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I apply this technology to make myself more efficient as a filmmaker? It was already making me way more efficient as a software engineer. And I wanted to see, okay, is there any way to apply that specifically in the period of pre-production, which is really the period of time when filmmakers, they've written their script, they're now getting into preparing for their film. There's so much they have to do in that space, especially independent filmmakers. They might not have a huge team. It all falls on you. Very similar to like as a founder, in the very beginning, everything falls on you. And so That's kind of was what got the ball rolling with the idea of FilmPro. Can we create AI tools to help filmmakers, manage their productions and do a lot of this stuff more efficiently? I decided to bring in my co-founder Adolfo. When we were just getting started, he's my cousin. We've known each other our entire lives. We played Little League baseball together, so we've been a team basically since we were little kids. It's been an awesome journey, kind of combining both worlds. It's felt the most right out of anything I've ever done in my life because it's finally kind of my whole life. I felt like I was going between two different worlds, and this brought it together in a very beautiful, like harmonious way. So that's kind of how we got here. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, you and I have so many similarities in that regard. And I think that's why we just like connect, and I appreciate deeply kind of that curiosity part of what you talked about, because interdisciplinary studies are also, they're very critical to how we kind of show up as well. And part of our journey of coming from legal into this media space, like why do a podcast, why put on these events and all this idea. And so I love that, because I've shared with you, I'm an amateur aspiring filmmaker myself. And I kind of came back into that world during COVID. And I used to make shorts in high school, but I never thought of myself as a creative. And I always really thought of myself more as an academic. And I think that is really part of why you brought this product together in an incredible way. I remember watching the demo. I was on the front row, of course, nerding out. I'm always, the front row person. And I remember watching the demo and just being like, wow, because pre-production is, I'm not going to say it's the hardest part. It is the most critical part of production. Yeah. And, I have gained such an appreciation for that, because what we see on screen is a very condensed version of what's actually getting done behind the scenes. And that's why I think this app is so awesome. So why don't we just talk a little bit about, and you're going to go really far on this. So, let's give them a little taster of what the app does and kind of what it doesn't do, because it is an AI component. Mm-hmm. And you and I, we've talked about this. We all have concerns for where does human creativity still exist in an AI world. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about your app and kind of how you see it helping humans and not necessarily replacing them.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you touched upon, that's something that's really important to me. As an actor and filmmaker, I want to keep making movies with people. I love being on set. I grew up on sets, and I love just collaborating with other artists. So to me, that's incredibly important. I also believe that this technology is going to be incredibly disruptive to every industry, but it's, there's an onus on us to decide how it's disruptive and in what way. And so I think there's a great potential for this technology to be a source of empowerment for artists. And that's kind of the direction that we're going for with FilmPro. And so to understand what FilmPro does, we kind of got to talk about pre-production. So, filmmakers, they write the script. That phase of the filmmaking life cycle is called development. They're ideating, researching, writing, rewriting. And the end result of that is a script. Then eventually they get on set, which is when they actually shoot that film. But in between those two phases of the process is something called pre-production. In that process is when filmmakers are taking a script, breaking them down, deciding what props do we need, what actors do we need to cast, what locations do we need to find, what equipment do we need, who do we need on our team as a cinematographer, as for makeup, for wardrobe, what wardrobe do we need to source. And aside from that, you need to decide after you have your locations and your people, you need to put together a schedule. of when you're going to film what. Oftentimes, you're not filming in order because it's not what makes the most sense from an efficiency perspective. It's really a puzzle that you're putting together. And all of that also informs a budget that you have to put together. And you have to put together reports and call sheets. And then that's just the logistics. But from a creative perspective, as a director, you're also putting together storyboards and shot lists that basically start putting together the creative side of things and your vision. So when you get on set, everyone needs to be on the same page of this is the film that we're making. You can't get on set the first day and no one knows what's going on. And so there's a lot of planning that goes on before that. And so where FilmPro comes in on all of this, it's what we're calling a production management platform. And basically, it serves three purposes. One, it's a creative sandbox for filmmakers to explore their creative ideas before they get on set. Those, storyboards, the concept art, the shot list, the character looks. Once they have that honed down, then out of that creative vision will emerge the logistics. All right, because I want this look for these characters, I need these actors. Because we're filming in these places and this is the look I need, this is going to be the schedule. And because of all of that, this is the budget. So all of those logistics emerge from the creative vision. So that second phase of FilmPro is what we call the logistics hub. And lastly, it becomes a collaborative layer where everyone on the team can come onto FilmPro and see this is the plan, this is the film that we're making. And the way that we use AI and all of that is to facilitate that. So on the creative side, we use a lot of image models and language models where the creative can basically direct it. Hey, I have this vision. I want a medium close-up of this character in this location. And it gives you something. And then you iterate. And you're like, okay, well, I like that initial shot, but I want it to be more of a profile shot. And I want a window in the back. And I want lighting coming from this direction. And now you get to iterate in this creative sandbox to generate these initial, what we call pre-visualizations of what you want your film to look like. So now you can share that with a cinematographer, share that with a production designer, and everyone can understand, all right, this is the director's vision. And the same thing with those other resources like the schedules, the budgets, the call sheets. All of those get generated using different large language models that we've integrated into the platform. Again, because at the end of the day, all of these things are tasks that are today requirements to make the film, but it's not making the film, right? Everyone, that's not the reason anyone got into this business. We got into this business because we want to tell stories. And so how can we simplify all of that other side of things so that, the creatives can focus on being creative? And that's kind of our entire vision here. Simplify pre-production.
I love it so much. It also removes some of the gaps that can exist once you get to set.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yes. Because if you miss a critical prop, that could delay you. And if you're delayed, time is money. Folks are sitting around and they're getting paid for every hour that they're on set. And there's also, of course, the regulations and everything around those labor laws and how long you can keep people there. And there's just a lot that goes into it on the backside that audiences really never see and understand. And it can also prevent great stories from being seen and heard and told, because you can have, again, like you said, a visionary producer or director or combination thereof, somebody who has a great story, whether it's theirs or somebody else's or their imagination, right? But without all the capital to go hire this person, hire that person on the front end to even get to some kind of demo or whatever of what that might be to try to get the funding to do a full production, you really have to show up with your A game. It's like the deck for a pitch founder, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm living in both of those worlds right now, which is cool.
Yeah.
Tell me, do you see, I see so many similarities between, like you pointed out, founders and creatives, and particularly film, because, and I'm gonna go on this tangent for 1 second, because a lot of artists can pick up a tool and they can create their art pretty easily, right? A painter can paint a canvas alone. Mm-hmm. A photographer can create photos alone, right? An actor in and of themselves as an artist shows up alone, right? And they can perform that craft without other people. Obviously, there's always other people involved most of the time. A filmmaker and a director, they cannot do it alone. No. And therefore, there's a huge barrier to entry. Mm-hmm. Did you have any motivations around that? I mean, was this intended to really be a disruptor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you touched upon those parallels. They're definitely there between, the world of, of being a founder and also being an entrepreneur or being a director or filmmaker. Both of them, you need to enlist people into your vision, right? And in order to enlist people into your vision, you need to have a very clear vision and be very good at communicating that vision, right? And so those things, like you said, filmmakers are also making pitch decks, just like entrepreneurs are and founders. And it's a constant act. You need to enlist the cinematographer onto your vision, your other actors onto your vision, get everyone to see that same vision that you have. And so I always say that as a filmmaker, as a director, you have two jobs. One, you need to get a PhD in your vision. Not a bachelor's, not a master's, a PhD. Go deep, understand everything, turn over every rock, every stone. And then after that, your second job becomes to become a professor of that vision, because you have incredibly talented creatives on in every department that are incredibly talented in what they do, way better than you will ever be at that thing. But it is your job to have them see that vision so that we are all, rowing in the same direction. That's really what the director's role is in a very similar fashion as what a founder is. We're both leading organizations to bring about a certain vision or mission. Absolutely. Yeah. And so again, FilmPro, we do see this technology being a great source of empowerment in that regard specifically. Not to, there will be someone who will create the, tell me the idea you have for your movie, press a button, and it will generate the movie for you. But that's going to, and that's great. They'll go do that. And, some people will like that and they will use that. But that's not what filmmakers want or need. And so what we want is tools that, help us manage a lot of the more cumbersome tasks so that we can focus on being creative, because at the end of the day, we want to have fun. A lot of people, we make our films. Yes, we want people to watch them. We want people to enjoy them. We want to share our work with people, but we make it for ourselves. At the end of the day, even if no one ever saw my movies, I would still love to make them because they're for me, and so we want to preserve that side of things, the human side of storytelling and filmmaking. That's really, in my opinion, the most important part.
100%. And I love that too, because founders also create their business for them. Typically it's like, I need to solve a problem that I see or I have, right? It's kind of like we like, this is kind of with our law firm, because the problem is not necessarily that clients need more lawyers or whatever. There's plenty of lawyers out there that can serve the clients. We do it differently, and maybe we have some reasons why people would work with us over others. Of course, that's the, differentiator, I guess. But really, as a lawyer, I wanted to work in a firm that made me happy. Mm-hmm. And not one that didn't make me happy, right? And so I love that, because also now that I've produced some films, I also feel the same way as you. I don't care if anybody ever sees them or not. It doesn't matter to me. As long as I'm having fun doing it, it's just like, it's good for my soul. So there's so many like similarities there. And I feel like that's why this just works really well. And it allows you, like you said, to kind of bring both sides of who you are, your unique purpose in this world. And you found that. And I think that is such a beautiful thing. And once people find that, I feel like I found that now too. And now it's like rocket fuel, like, okay, like game on now. And so I'm just excited for your future. I'm also interested, has there ever been a particular decision that you've made where you feel like it was kind of a key to your growth or a key to kind of where you are today. And was that personal in nature, or was it like more business related? Can you share anything on that side of it as a new founder and kind of where you're going to your next level?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the pivotal decision came a lot earlier in my life. Just when I was in college, deciding to study, I had like a existential crisis. Am I going to study acting and film, or am I going to study something else? And I had, really great advice from, my father, who had, been an actor his entire life. He told me, look, as an artist, as a filmmaker, as an actor, you portray people of all walks of life, all socioeconomic backgrounds, all religious backgrounds, all historical backgrounds. And that means that literally the more you know about anything, the more prepared you are as a storyteller and as an actor. And so that kind of opened up my eyes to, okay, well, maybe I don't need to go down the traditional path. I started reading about all these other incredible artists and actors and filmmakers that didn't study acting or filmmaking. Tarantino didn't go to film school. Christopher Nolan didn't get into film school. He's one of my favorite directors. And so many other actors too that studied different things. Rowan Atkinson, if you know Mr. Bean.
Yes, I love him. He's like one of my faves.
He's incredible. He has a master's in either chemical or electrical engineering from Oxford University. So that really started opening my eyes. Okay, well, maybe I can do both. Maybe I can study something else that I find interesting and might be able to find a way to bridge that and help me in my acting side. I've always tried to seek to see what can I learn from my background in engineering and mathematics and science and apply that to my filmmaking and acting, and vice versa. And so going down that path led me to then, work at Goldman, where the money I was making at Goldman, I was able to use to back into like my acting classes, and also to start producing my first films. I think that there's not one path to get anywhere. And I think learning that early on, or at least trusting that, okay, if I do this, it's all going to work out, and eventually it will all make sense. Even if in the beginning, people ask me also, what do you want to be? Oh, I'll be an actor and a filmmaker. And you're studying math and computer science. Like, how does that make sense? It was seemingly divergent paths that I trusted would eventually come together and, aid each other. And that's really how it has turned out. And so I think that decision really has opened so many doors. And I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about FilmPro today if it wasn't for that decision I made back in college to not take the traditional path. And just, I've always disliked labels and, going with just one thing. Like, I'm not just an actor, like I'm a human being, and, there's multitudes there. So.
Absolutely. And I feel like with entrepreneurs in particular, has kind of a common theme amongst us, right? The rebellious aspect of that and not wanting to be put into a box. Mm-hmm. And I think it's incredible when you find courage and enlightenment. And it sounds like your dad was a really great mentor to you. Mm-hmm. And it's so important to have people in your life that can help you realize that you don't have to be trapped. You don't have to be trapped in what society tells you. And I just really love that. I love the spirit of curiosity, right? I think that that's a theme that I've heard a lot in our conversation today. I also, every time I have these conversations, I'm always trying to reflect on and I think our audience does the same thing, right? How does this conversation impact me? Where are there parallels in my experience or my goals or my journey? And how can I use them to help me sharpen the iron, right? And the one tidbit that moves the needle. And so as we kind of bring our conversation to a closing point, we're going to ask you to share here in a minute more about how folks can learn more about FilmPro and find you online. But I always like to drop this one just as a little, because you're an actor and an entrepreneur, so you'll be able to give us some good pizzazz here, I'm sure. But is there any point that you would share with whether they're a startup entrepreneur like yourself in this current venture, or maybe somebody sitting at a desk like at a Goldman or any other larger entity where maybe they have some passion outside of that. They want to pursue some different things. Do you have any tidbits of advice for folks as we close out this conversation to help them move forward and continue their journey?
Yeah. I've been speaking to a lot of students lately, specifically about they've been wanting advice. I've been speaking at a few different universities with regards to kind of what's going on with AI, and a lot of them feel a little bit lost right now because this technology is disrupting and changing things a lot. And one thing that's become clear to me is that in the old world we were taught that in order to succeed, we needed to pick something, pick a craft, pick a skill, pick a field of study, go really, really, really deep into that. And that way someone will pay you money to do that one thing. And I think in the world of AI, with this new technology rising, things are changing. And really, it's the people that have a broader perspective and broader vision that can use these tools to kind of fill those holes and go deep with the tools, but have that broader vision is what's going to be more successful, or more, they're going to be the ones that really rise in this new era. And so I think it is, it is incumbent on all of us to start pursuing our passions, because has never been a better time in history to start an entrepreneurial endeavor. And entrepreneurial endeavors, all, like you said, they all usually start with a problem that you have, a passion that you have, that you want to share with the world and solve a problem for other people that have similar problems to you. And it's never become easier to do that than today. And so what I would say, any advice I give people today is just lean into these tools that are emerging, learn how to use them, and learn how to build your castle with them, your future with them, because there has never been a better time in history to do so. And so if there's any skills that I think are going to be very, very important going forward, they're entrepreneurial skills. It's executive functioning. It's the ability to go from 0 to 1 and to, again, enlist people in your visions, because it is easier than ever to manifest those visions today with this technology as a source of empowerment. So what I tell everyone is lean into these tools, learn how to use them, and don't get sucked into the narrative of, there's a lot of people that say that these tools are they're evil, or they're going to they're gonna kill all these jobs. Yes, they're going to allow people to do a lot more than they could before, and therefore you might need less people in any given organizations. But I believe because of that, we're going to see more organizations, more opportunities to bring your vision to life instead of bringing someone else's vision to life. Every person will be able to do more. And so I think it's important for all of us to dig into these tools, learn them, and use them to bring about our own visions and our own passions, and start building our own futures with it. And that's really how we should be looking at this going forward. And that's the advice I have for everyone right now. Dig into your passions and start building something of your own with these tools.
Oh man, I just couldn't agree more. I mean, honestly, this has been like, of course, as a lawyer, and of course you as a technologist, we need to be stewards of these tools, and we need to be using these tools ethically and responsibly, just as you are with protecting human creativity and enhancing it rather than trying to replace it. That's why I have so much deep respect for what you're doing. But at the same time, if you can use a tool to expand your consciousness, expand your awareness, expand your efficacy and execution, that is doing nothing more than taking your human ingenuity, your uniqueness, your creative power, and channeling it into the world like has never been possible before. And the future is very bright. And there are many people that are naysaying, and again, we need guardrails. We're working through those things together as a species. What does this look like to us? What's okay? The laws of different countries will dictate which different countries have different perspectives about the use of these tools. And I think that those issues are also critical. Mm-hmm. And how we show up with our representatives in representative democracies, at least where we can have a voice, is important. Talking about this amongst ourselves as business leaders, and then going into our communities as you're doing with students. Students are the future. And I'm so glad that you brought them up as a stakeholder group in this conversation, Alex, because I just put 2 kids in college this past year. They have made it through Honey scholarships intact. I'm like, we are on fire right now.
That's awesome.
So excited. But there is a little bit of dystopian type of dissonance almost with the youth around, well, especially those who have graduated within the last couple of years. That's kind of a gap, and that same group of kids also went through COVID in high school and early college. Yeah. I think there's a lot there. And as business leaders, it's so critical to reach out to the youth and to show them exactly what you've said today. So thank you. That really touched me in an important way. So much here. Wow. This is incredible, Alex. I know you and I are going to be hanging out. We are already talking about all kinds of stuff together. But how can other folks find you, find FilmPro AI, and maybe take some next steps to try the tool out if they have some creative juices flowing and they want to see what it's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So FilmPro is free to sign up for. We have a free tier. You can get started and get a taste for the platform. It's you can find it at filmpro.ai. Make an account and just start playing around with it. If you have a script, you can just upload that in there and get going from there. We you can follow us on Instagram at filmpro_AI, YouTube filmpro_AI, basically all the social medias. You can find us through there. And if you want to connect with me directly, Instagram, Alex D. Lugo is one of the best ways if you want to learn more about my acting and filmmaking work. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, Alex D. Lugo as well. Happy to connect, happy to chat about anything from, film and TV and acting and what we're doing with FilmPro, and just in general conversations about AI. I find this fascinating. I do believe that, this technology is going to be incredibly disruptive, and that can be scary. But the only way to navigate it is by having conversations like these. The only way to foster a positive future with this technology is to do so decisively and to do so intentionally, right? I don't think the positive things happen by accident. I think they happen intentionally. And I think that it's incumbent in all of us to have these conversations, not just in the film industry, but in the legal industry, in the business world, in at the economics and politics world as well. We need to be having these conversations in every single institution, industry, so that we are working collectively towards ensuring that this technology has a positive impact, because it's a general purpose technology, like electricity, for example. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad, and it is incumbent on the people wielding the tools to ensure that we build a positive future. And so I am a huge nerd about this. I write about it on LinkedIn. I've had a few articles about it. So please connect with me. Would love to nerd out about any of those things. So.
Yes. Well, and also we'll probably have you back to talk a little bit more about some of those ideas as well, because AI is a huge part of my curiosity and my world as well. And so to me, I feel like you said, we're going to take it step by step. It's moving very quickly. We want to be decisive. And so we need voices like yours, especially from really operating AI in corporate, in a corporate context before it really became a mainstream consumer-based tool. That's important. And we would go so far down that rabbit hole right now, but my little gears are turning, right? I'm like, okay, well, we're going to make some follow-up conversations on some of those topics because I think it's just incredibly important. I think I read yesterday, and I probably have the statistic a little bit wrong, but something like last year, it was about 46% of business leaders said that AI adoption and governance was becoming a pressure point within their organization. And this year it's upwards to like 87% or something like that. So folks are asking their leaders for these tools. They want to use these tools. Leaders have some reservations about the tools. There's obviously a gap in knowledge and education, and there's a lot of risk. Cybersecurity and cybercrime is up. And AI is only going to make it easier in some ways. So there's so much here. And when you start from ethics, just like you are doing with FilmPro, and you start from the idea that humans matter more than anything else, you can be part of that future. And that's what I see for you guys at FilmPro. And I'm just so honored to know you, Alex. Thank you for coming in today. And you guys check him out online. Alex is an incredible dude. If you're in Atlanta, he's all around town. You can find him at different events. He was at our summit with Liberty Ventures a couple of weeks ago. And so you'll see him around our parts as well in the future. And as always, we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Great. Thank you so much, Neil. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the show. Remember, stay sharp, stay curious, and stay tuned for our next episode. Bye for now.